Hey guys, in this week's episode, we're going to be talking about David Fincher's newest film, Mank. But before that, we're going to be talking about Warner Bros and HBOMax's crazy new deal for new releases, what it means for movie theaters, more. And then we're also going to be talking about Hulu's reboot of the Animaniacs. So join us while we try to take over the world.
Like we do every day.
Yeah.
Or every night. I can't remember.
Nailed it.
Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast powered by Cinelinks. My name is Justin, and with me is a man who insisted that I give him credit for being on this episode even though I didn't want to. Mike, how you doing?
Well, considering I was going to try to think of a way that I could have written this entire episode, but we don't write anything in advance, really. You even wrote the show notes.
I know. What do you get credit for? What do you deserve credit for?
I don't know. I talk at the beginning. I'm the first voice they hear in the episode.
That's true. Well, now they know who you are, since you fought so hard.
Thank you. If this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about film and TV news, or the movies or TV that we have been watching. Then we move into a feature review. This week, we're discussing David Fincher's newest Netflix collaboration, Mank.
And also here on the Casual Cinecast, every other week, we like to put out a Casually Criterion episode. Those episodes are Criterion Collection focused, where we review a film from the Criterion Collection that is chosen by you, the listener. You can vote for that Criterion Collection film in a poll that we put out on our Twitter account. We actually, at the time you're listening to this, we should have a poll for our next one up right now, a poll that we listed our choices in the last episode. So go back and listen to that one if you want to hear why we chose those movies, or go to our Twitter account. And in the meantime, you can go back and listen to our last Criterion episode on the fantastic Mr. Fox and plenty of other Criterion films that we reviewed over the several years we've been doing this podcast.
Oh, man. How time flies.
I know. It's weird to think that it's been, I think, 3+ years now.
Wow. That's depressing. Okay.
Yeah, it's depressing. And if you don't want to be depressed, you can follow us on Twitter at Casual Cinecast and vote in our polls and feel good about yourself for voting, because that's very important. I think we can all agree. Yeah,
voting is very important, and so is accepting final results. So
yeah,
may the best movie win.
Yes, so whatever the results are, we'll acknowledge their existence. And we also have Facebook and Instagram accounts, which are also at Casual Cinecast. We also have an email, casualcinemedia@gmail.com. So if you want to send us any movie recommendations, you want to ask us questions or topics that you want us to discuss on the films that we're going to be reviewing each week, you can send messages to those social media accounts or to casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And then, of course, last but not least, if you haven't done so already, you enjoy the show, you want to help other people find it and let us know that you enjoy the show, give us a review on iTunes, on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on, make it a 5-star review, leave us some kind words. We would appreciate it.
Yeah, please and thank you. Okay, so news on the march.
News on the march.
News on the march.
Relevant.
Never. Yeah. It's like never more relevant than now. And that one episode you and Matt Ward did a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, where we reviewed Citizen Kane.
Indeed. Okay, here we go.
News on the march.
All right, Mike, here we are in News on the March. So tell me, what have you been watching?
Well, other than just some TV shows here and there, not a whole lot. And even then, I've kind of mentioned them before. But one thing that I kind of started watching that I haven't talked about recently, at least I don't think anyone has on the show because Chris hasn't even been here for a while. So Animaniacs, the reboot on Hulu. Have you heard of this?
Of course.
Yeah, so I used to watch Animaniacs quite a bit whenever I was a kid, and I didn't realize until looking it up recently that show ran for quite a while. It ran from 1993 to 98.
Oh, that's a long time.
That is a very long time. I would have guessed maybe like 2 or 3 years, because 2 or 3 years to a 5-year-old is a long time.
Yeah.
So anyways, I've given this show a shot, and I gotta say, it feels a lot like the old Animaniacs. I don't know how well the old Animaniacs ages. Like, I don't know if you could watch it now and it would be clever or kind of like aimed at adults like this one is. But this very much walks the line of being able to like appeal to kids and have lots of jokes that are over their heads, and then also simultaneously appeal to adults at the same time. It has the original voice cast back, and it has Pinky and the Brain back. But a lot of like the side skits, like if anyone is a fan of Animaniacs, a lot of the side skits like the Good Feathers and things like that are not actually, like, they don't appear to be in the show properly. Like, you'll see the characters in like the background or some cameos and some skits, you know? But like a lot of the skits that used to be in the old Animaniacs have been kind of trimmed out, and it's really just focusing on the main three Warner siblings and then Pinky and the Brain. Yeah. So anyways, I kind of went on a ramble there. What is your relationship with Animaniacs, Justin?
I mean, I've seen it and I've watched it here and there. Definitely what I remember most was Pinky and the Brain and a little bit of like Good Feathers. But I haven't seen a lot. My biggest memory of something that the non-Pinky and the Brain people do is like it was like a YouTube video of like really dirty jokes from like kids shows in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
And there was an Animaniacs clip on there where they talk about fingering something and everybody looks really sheepish. And it's like, oh, that's very inappropriate for kids.
Wow.
Like they talk about it, but they're like being a detective and they're like, oh, we need to finger something or something like that.
Yeah. They play on words because the old detectives, like, fingering someone means like identifying someone, pointing them out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I get it.
Anyways, that's basically my recollection. I think I was a little bit older, maybe like just ever so slightly older than the demographic for Animaniacs.
Well, now you're right in the demographic for the Animaniacs because it seems like it's catered to like 30-somethings and then also for kids. I will say that, yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty similar. Like there's lots of like, not necessarily dirty jokes, but there are definitely jokes that aren't meant for like little kids to get. But I don't know. It has that same kind of Animaniacs spirit, if you guys all remember it. But I'm missing some of the old skits, you know, and for people of our generation who watched that show, I'm thinking, you know, Good Idea, Bad Idea.
Oh, I did like Good Idea, Bad Idea.
Yeah, there was Chicken Boo.
Mm-hmm. I remember the girl with a dog. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Dr. Scratch and Sniff.
I don't remember that one. Oh,
he was like their psychiatrist. And then there was also like Hello Nurse, but I can understand why that one is not coming back.
Yeah, I remember the joke now. It wasn't a detective fingering something. They were being detectives and they were looking for fingerprints, and like someone is like hanging out with a cartoon version of Prince, the musical artist, and like with like a glove on, and they're like, oh, never mind. Wrong thing.
Well,
so
I'm glad you remembered that joke.
Yep. I just didn't want someone to come and yell at me for not knowing my Animaniacs on social media.
Your
or somewhere else.
Animaniacs jokes.
Yeah.
Rest easy, Animaniacs fans.
Yeah.
So anyways, I don't know. Give it a shot. Give the modern rendition a shot. It may be too callbacky to appeal to you, but I don't know. It's got some fun songs. It's like a little bit more adult Looney Tunes.
Yeah, I enjoyed the teaser that they released. It was like a parody of the Jurassic Park scene where they see the dinosaurs for the first time in the funny Jeep. And I enjoyed that. So like if it's all on tone with that, I think it's worthwhile.
Yeah,
eventually.
I think so. I mean, it's that's kind of always been the Animaniacs' thing, which is like pop culture, political figures. Like they kind of tackle everything in that show, and they try to do it in a way that's pretty clever. It's not like dirty like a Comedy Central show, you know, but I feel like since it's on Hulu now and the 30-somethings are all the ones really watching it, I'm sure this reboot may get a little bit more adult heavy as it goes on.
Probably so.
But yeah, anyways, okay. That's all my thoughts on the Animaniacs right now. Justin, what do you have this week?
Well, I haven't watched a ton of stuff that's noteworthy to talk about. Mostly been like TV shows and things I've already mentioned before. I watched like another of the short films from the Agnes Varda set that I talked about. I think it was last week, and continuing to watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is great. But I'll kind of follow up on that when I fully catch up with that. But the thing that I did want to talk about was the sort of bombshell news about the HBO Max Warner Brothers thing, where, for those who don't know, Warner Brothers has basically come out and said that I think it's most of, if not all of their major 2021 films are slated for release in 2021. They're going to put out on HBO Max simultaneously with their release in theaters. So have you heard about this news, Mike?
I have, actually. And just before recording, I was reading that Christopher Nolan has slammed Warner Brothers for their decision to do this.
That's not surprising.
No, it isn't. I'm sure Scorsese and Tarantino will have something to say as well.
The movie theaters also slammed Warner Brothers for this too. Not surprising.
Why would they do that? Who knows? So what are your thoughts on this news? This is not good for theaters.
No, it's not good for theaters. I mean, I think if they make it through this, what I'm hoping and maybe what they're hoping, and from what Warner Brothers has said, is that this is a temporary move that they don't plan to keep permanent going forward. It's just while this pandemic is going on. I guess if it's somehow successful for them, which is also a bit of a gamble because HBO Max isn't the most successful on-demand streaming service so far. Yeah,
but I mean, I bet they're going to get a whole lot of subscribers.
Yeah, I think they will. I think they will. I guess what I'm saying is it's temporary, so I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with it if theaters can make it out on the other side and if this thing doesn't stick around. So like kind of assuming that, I think it's good for me because I don't necessarily want to go to the movie theaters right now. And
same, but I want to go back someday, and I want them to be there and in good shape whenever I do, So I'm worried about this, but also at the same time, I completely agree with you. I don't want to go to a movie theater right now. But also at the same time, if it means waiting 6 more months for, Wonder Woman 1984, I would much rather do that than get people used to this platform that you can't get them to come back from. Because I think during this pandemic, I think a lot of people are learning what they can live without.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And once they realize that they can watch brand new content on their pretty decent home surround sound system and stuff like that, then I don't know. I mean, that may just be what the market drives to from then on out, because Netflix is already trying to embrace that. Now you're going to get Warner Brothers trying to embrace that as well.
Yeah.
If Disney does that too, then it's,
It's also worth considering that if these movies sit on the shelf for another 6 months to a year, then like the debt that these movie studios are in would cause trouble for the movie studios. So,
well, and the interest for the movies themselves and the properties will get replaced with the next new thing, Yeah,
it's like if you wait too long on some of these things, you're gonna diminish your returns even more because the hype is going to be gone, and they need to make money on these. Probably in some cases in order to like keep going forward as a movie studio. So it's like the death of movie theaters, or at least some movie theaters, until this is all over. And I'm sure one day someone will revitalize them.
Yeah.
Or the death of movie production studios, which again, someone would revive those as well.
Yeah.
Probably before theaters.
I believe the first one that's coming out is going to be Wonder Woman 1984 on Christmas, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
There's a lot of other interesting stuff coming out. I mean, I'm looking at a list here. There's the Tom and Jerry movie, Godzilla versus Kong, the Mortal Kombat movie.
Wait, there's a Mortal Kombat movie?
Apparently, according to this list.
Is it a cartoon or a movie?
I assume it's a movie, but what do I know?
Not much. Not what the movie is, apparently, so keep going.
The Space Jam sequel with LeBron James. And then the Suicide Squad, which I guess is another... Is that another...
That's the James Gunn. It's like it's a sequel / reboot to the crappy Suicide Squad. Okay. But they got James Gunn to do it, and apparently it's like a really hard R, and like he got them to be like, I can kill anyone, right? And they're like, yeah, and he's like, anyone? So like in theory, even Harley Quinn could die, even though I don't think she will.
Yeah, interesting. Well, on top of the Suicide Squad, Dune, of course, Matrix 4, and then
wait, does it have dates on these things?
No, it's just a list.
Okay. It's
just a list. Matrix 4, and you might have interest, The Many Saints of Newark, the Sopranos prequel.
I am interested in that. But that probably would have come to HBO anyway.
Probably so, but maybe not simultaneously with a theatrical release.
Yeah. Well, this is pretty exciting. I think Dune, The Many Saints of Newark, and a couple of other things interest me. I don't really care about Suicide Squad that much, or some of the other ones, but it should drive a lot of business for HBO Max, man. I just don't see how this doesn't change the game. I don't know, because once HBO Max gets used to this steady stream of like A-list content, you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to want to give that up. That'd be like giving up Game of Thrones all over again.
Right. I think it's also worth noting too that this content is going to be available for a month following the simultaneous like HBO Max and theatrical release. And then after a month on HBO Max, these films are going to go away.
Oh,
and they'll continue theatrically too. So that kind of
we've
changes.
Had a month to pirate really good copies of them and get them out on the internet.
Right. Yeah. So it kind of changes the dynamic a little bit that eventually it'll go away.
Right. Well, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, that's kind of good for theaters, but it feels like what they should do is instead of a simultaneous release, give the theaters like a 2-week head start.
Yeah, that seems to be more fair to me.
Yeah. Give them 2-week head start and then drop it on HBO Max. But what do I know? I'm not a businessman.
Yeah, I think what it'll come down to if this sort of thing sticks is like how much HBO Max or other platforms are going to pay.
Right. Yeah.
Pay for them to do this, right? Because I'm sure, I don't know, maybe they have a thing worked out where they're getting money based on playtime versus making a flat fee off of it. I don't really know how that's structured.
I know they were shopping around No Time to Die. Sony was. Mm-hmm. Like the new James Bond. And I think they wanted to sell it to Netflix, but I think or Apple or something like that. One of them wanted to buy it, but the price that they were asking was like just a little bit too much. I think they were asking for like $400 million or $500 million.
Yeah.
So I think if it's a big enough movie, it's like a flat fee, right? But
yeah. But that flat fee is basically going to have to make their money back. Otherwise, that's super risky.
Yeah. I know. I wonder if the advertising budget will start changing for these types of things, right? Because you won't need. I don't know. I mean, you could help rely on whichever streaming service is going to purchase it to kind of cut the advertising costs with you. You know,
yeah,
in a sense, true. Maybe because they're going to want to let you know they have it, and if for that to do any good, you got to know what it is, right? So if you sell them No Time to Die, and then you're like, well, our marketing budget for No Time to Die is like $200 million on top of like the $200 million it took to film the movie. Then we got to sell to you for $4 million, well, or $400 million, and then it's like, well, how about $300 million, and then we'll cover some of the advertising. I don't know, you know, like it's going to be the Wild West for a minute, you know.
Yeah, I think that they're just going to have to somehow make enough off of this to cover the movie costs and turn them a nice profit in order for this to stick around.
Yeah, I wonder if we're going to start seeing for things like Disney, I would imagine, because like, and I don't know what the numbers for like something like a season of The Mandalorian cost, but I would imagine that it's more profitable for Disney and maybe eventually these other streamers to stop focusing on a 2-hour movie and start focusing on what would have been a $200 million budget for a Star Wars movie, right? And then instead of making another movie, because why would you in this climate, make another 8 episodes of a show that's going to keep people subscribed for 2.5 months, right? Like,
yeah.
If the theaters are dead, the model for making a theatrical movie versus a TV show for a lot of these companies like Marvel and Star Wars and DC, I just don't see how a movie is the best way to go going forward. You know what I mean? Because you can make a season of a TV show for roughly, I imagine, the same budget as a movie.
Yeah, depending on the TV show, some would be more, I imagine.
So that's what I wanted to know. Like, yeah, I mean, like a season of The Mandalorian. What does that compare to like something like, you know, The Rise of Skywalker, budget wise?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's what that's interesting stuff. Or like
maybe the budgets will get closer together.
Coming out. You know like, what is a season of WandaVision compared to like, you know, like a Thor Ragnarok situation or like a Thor 2, you know?
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll see like those budgets come closer together. Like maybe we won't see, you know, Christopher Nolan handed a blank check for his film, you know, or, you know, a $250 million budget or a $300 million budget for a big Marvel movie. Maybe that'll be pared down, you know, feel a little bit more like a long, really good TV show.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Yeah, I'm wondering if these budgets are going to start being more tame for the movies, or if we're just going to start seeing a rise in serialized content.
I think that for sure.
Yeah, cool.
I mean, that's apparent just with like all the Marvel series coming out and all the Star Wars series that are rumored.
They still have a
whatnot.
Crap ton of Marvel movies in like the pipeline too. But Disney did say they're going to shift their focus to Disney Plus. So, you know, I'm wondering how long before, like, if the theaters are done for, then I think movies as being like the prime way to spend $200 million is going to be gone. You know what I mean? That $200 million will best be spent on smaller adventures. Yeah,
that makes sense to me. And in the meantime, you know, just with COVID on like a really personal level, you know, I'm excited to be able to watch these films at the same time as everyone else and not have to wait, you know, without risking my health and the health of others by going out to movie theater. It's unfortunate. But you know, greedy and personally, I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. That's the first sign right there, though. You're a guy that likes to go to the movie theaters. So imagine what the average Joe don't like to go to the movie theaters is feeling, you know? Another thing, just sidebar. If you're going to do this, Warner Bros and HBOMax, for God's sakes, get a better quality compression, whatever you have going on with HBOMax. It looks like shit. It looks bad. They don't offer 4K. Everything is just kind of bland looking. Like, at least, you know, Netflix has, although compressed, has like 4K that looks a little better. And Disney Plus, I think, looks best out of all of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying, if you're going to do this, prepare your servers, prepare your software.
I think I read somewhere that Wonder Woman 84 Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be available in 4K through HBO Max.
Sweet. And then for a series, for content, they can do Wonder Woman 2 through 1983 to fill in the gap.
That would be awesome to see a Wonder Woman adventure for every year since the death of Christ, I guess. I don't know why that'd be cool, but maybe it wouldn't be.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't. It'd probably get really old really fast.
She could just like destroy like anybody, like years like 1 through 1960, probably. Maybe 1940. I don't know.
It would probably just blow everyone's minds.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think that's enough about this, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Let's talk about Mank.
All right, let's do it.
Mank, it's Orson Welles.
Of course it is.
I think it's time we talked. Ready and willing to hunt a great white whale?
Just call me Ahab.
Tell the story you know.
I hear you're hunting dangerous game.
This is different. This is about something.
I've put up with your suicidal drinking, your compulsive gambling, your silly platonic affairs.
I gave you a second chance.
How wealth and influence can crush a
Are
man.
you hoping I might absolve you of such a personal betrayal? You made yourself court jester.
Nobody makes a monkey out of William Randolph Hearst.
You pick a fight with Willie, you are finished.
Mank. Mr. Mankowitz.
Okay, so as always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front. We'll both be talking generally about the film, our general thoughts, and we won't give any spoilers or details away. So if you have not seen Mank yet, you can continue to listen for the next little while. Before we move into spoilers and start spoiling things, we're going to give you a warning and a spoiler alert so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast, go watch Mank on Netflix, and then come back and finish listening to the episode.
That's right. So Mank was directed by David Fincher, based on a script by his late father, by the way, which is interesting. It stars Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried. The IMDb synopsis says, 1930s Hollywood is reevaluated through the eyes of a scathing social critic and alcoholic screenwriter, Herman J. Mankiewicz, as he races to finish the screenplay of Citizen Kane.
I don't think I have anything to add to that.
No, that's an accurate synopsis. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Justin, what is your relationship with David Fincher? What is your relationship with Citizen Kane? And were you looking forward to this movie at all? And then ultimately, did you like it?
Yes, I was looking forward to the movie. I'm going to answer these backwards in reverse order from the way that you asked them.
Keep them on their toes.
Yeah. Well, except for I'll save whether or not I liked it for the end. But yes, I was looking forward to Mank. I actually didn't even watch a trailer because I was already sold on like the concept and David Fincher in general.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane, I'm a big fan of. I think it's excellent. I won't go too far into details about that because, as you said earlier in this episode, a few weeks ago, guest Matt Ward and I reviewed Citizen Kane and kind of gushed about it for a while. So you can go back and listen to that if you want to hear my thoughts on it. But big fan. David Fincher, I am just kind of mixed on. Like there are some of his films that I think are great and I really loved, and then some of his films I watch and admire them from a technical standpoint more than I actually enjoy them as films. Some of his that I really liked a lot were The Social Network, of course. Zodiac, I think, is really great. I really like Curious Case of Benjamin Button a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more than most people I've encountered. And you know, when I was younger, I liked Fight Club a lot. I haven't watched it in a long time, but I think it's probably still pretty good.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And then some of his other stuff, I just, you know, like, as I said, technically they're impressive and I enjoy looking at them for the most part and kind of thinking about the technical aspects of it and like how he's making them and like the lighting and, that sort of thing, which I think came about after watching some special features for his remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and realizing how much effort and thought goes into, like, from a technical standpoint, goes into like his shooting of films.
Yeah.
And how much like CG there is and lighting and like reframing and all kinds of stuff you just don't expect. And I think it's kind of fun. But I think for me, Mank, did I like it? Yes, I did. Was I really into it? Not really. I just, you know, somewhat, I enjoyed it. I was never having a bad time, but I was looking at a film that was really technically impressive for me. Like I thought the film looked really great. It evoked the cinematography of Citizen Kane a lot. with a lot of wide angle lenses, obviously the black and white cinematography, a lot of
similar shots of like the alcohol bottle and the snow globe.
Yeah, and a lot of deep focus cinematography where everything's in focus, which is something that, you know, they pioneered in Citizen Kane with Greg Tolan as the DP. So they pulled a lot of that off really well, and they created a really unique looking Hollywood.
Yeah, you would never know this was filmed in 8K.
No, I guess not.
I mean, they did significant degradation to it to make it look like a legitimate, like, old film that you could have dusted off and put on a projector, even down to cigarette burns and hair and dust. So
there's some things that I appreciate from like a style perspective, like the cigarette burns, like the slug lines from the script, you know, telling us where we were and what period we were, and then kind of like moving down like a typewriter after they're typed out on screen.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like a lot of stuff I appreciated, but just from like a story and character and emotional standpoint, I was left pretty underwhelmed, pretty meh on it, you know?
Yeah.
So I guess it just felt like a more interesting visual spectacle than anything else.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's where I'm at. I'll leave it there. I will toss it over to you, give you the same questions, your relationship with David Fincher, your relationship with Citizen Kane. Were you excited about it, and what did you think?
Okay. So, yes, of course, same as you, I was excited about it. I, like you, have followed David Fincher throughout, you know, the time I've been into movies. I believe, you know, but when I was getting into movies, I think Panic Room was the new David Fincher film on the block.
Yeah, I still have not seen that. That's the one I haven't seen.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
sorry to interrupt you.
As far as Citizen Kane goes, I'm a big fan of Citizen Kane. I've seen it many times. I think 3 times in film school, probably.
Yeah, that checks, because I think I watch it every time with you, and I think I've seen it 3 times too.
Yeah, I would say I'm probably a bigger David Fincher fan than you are, but he does But he does have some films that I really don't like that much. Like I don't think The Game is a good movie, but technically well made. So I think my problems are that mostly on a script level there, you know. Alien 3 is a very well made bad movie, you know. Again, not David Fincher's fault.
Yeah.
I think Mank is probably somewhere in the middle for me. I think Social Network being the high point of David Fincher, then Zodiac, and then, you know, Benjamin Button Fight Club. You know, 7, I think, is probably above Benjamin Button Fight Club for me.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so yeah, I've always been a fan of David Fincher's sensibilities. I like his cinematography generally. They're always kind of dark and muted, very moody. All of his movies are very moody. That said, this movie, you know, it's a film that I enjoyed, but like you, I didn't feel necessarily very invested in. It is technically beautiful and very fun to admire, but it's hard to love all of the time. You know, there are some moments that I love. There are some flourishes that I love. And this is a film that I like better now than I did when I just finished watching it. You know, the more I think on it, the more I like it, but I don't know if it'll ever enter into like, you know, top tier Fincher for me. I think it's a little long. It's a little self-indulgent. But you know what? I was interested in a lot of what they're talking about. That said, I don't know if I can recommend this film to anyone who is not a really big movie nerd. Like anyone.
Yeah.
Like I can't recommend it to friends who like David Fincher. I can't recommend it to people who think they like movies, like unless they like Citizen Kane, even. Like unless they're very familiar with Citizen Kane and the story around it. I don't know that this movie is one that is even made to be appreciated by people who don't know what's going on.
Yeah, I don't think my love for Citizen Kane really factors into this movie. which that's not
but
necessarily a
imagine
bad
if
thing.
you didn't love Citizen Kane and you weren't familiar with the story behind it.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have any angle into this movie at all?
Probably not. I guess not. No.
That's what I'm saying, right? Because like all the conversations in this movie, they're all about politics surrounding MGM at the time, politics in Hollywood at the time. You know, the change that's going on in the business at the time, the local elections in California, with between Upton Sinclair, you know, and whoever he was running against, who won, whose name escapes me because I'm not from California.
Yeah.
But all of this stuff is very rooted in the point of view of the industry and what's going on in the industry at that time. So I imagine, you know, I found a lot of these conversations interesting, but like my dad who likes movies wouldn't.
Yeah.
You know, my brother wouldn't. So
yeah,
I don't know who this movie's for, if not for people like you and I.
Yeah, I definitely think it's for us because some of the things that I enjoyed from a content perspective the most were the little people and things that I recognized, right? You know, like the Joseph von Sternberg being the director in the room whenever they, in the beginning of the film, they have to go in and have the pitch meeting.
Right.
You know, things like that. And some of the film stuff that they were working on and talking about like that was fun to know.
Yeah.
But what I mean, I guess, about the Citizen Kane thing is like, I think you're right that your interest in this film, it was primarily going to come from knowledge of Citizen Kane, but my love of Citizen Kane didn't like really make me enjoy the movie, I think, any more than if I was familiar with Citizen Kane but didn't like it.
Right. Yeah. I'm not saying you have to love Citizen Kane to watch.
Yeah.
If you have seen Citizen Kane or if you're familiar with the story, you could probably still appreciate this movie, maybe even more than the film itself if you don't like it. I'm not saying you have to love Citizen Kane. But I think if you don't have an affinity for old movies, you're not familiar with the techniques and styles of old movies, a lot of the charm of the technical craft will be lost on you. I mean, you'll be, they're making it look old, but will you really appreciate how that looks, right? Because like, unless you have spent many hours watching films from that decade, I don't know. I just don't know that like the charms of this movie will be that charming to the average viewer. Now, to me, like I said, I liked it. So, you know, that caveat aside, I'll drop that angle now. And I do want to say that my main thing, I think, that really kept me at a distance from this movie was a lot of the dialogue felt a little bit off. Like they're trying to sound retro and they're trying to sound old. But I'm thinking of like Amanda Seyfried, for example. The first time you see her character, Marion Davis, she sort of fell flat for me because I think one of the first things she says is like, "Come here, I'm dying for a ciggy," or something like that. "I'm dying for a ciggy, boo," or something like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It just doesn't really land for me. It feels a little off. It doesn't really connect the way I think that they intended it to. Did you feel that at all, or is that just me?
I think I felt that in certain places. I think...
Yeah, not all the time.
Film...
It came and went. Just certain lines every now and then in certain scenes where I would just be like, whoa, that felt a little weird.
Well, you know, this kind of ties in a little bit with what I was talking about earlier, saying, you know, that it's a Hollywood that doesn't necessarily look like any other like 1930s Hollywood or even like real 1930s Hollywood. It's glamorized. I think it's a bit caricatured. You know,
yeah.
to I don't know if it's to a satirical degree, but you know, I think a lot of the characters, particularly like, I mean, maybe Mank himself, but William Randolph Hearst and Louis B. Mayer for sure are caricatured. So the Amanda Seyfried character, you know, it felt like a caricature of like an old Hollywood type, like somewhere between, you know, Betty Davis and Mae West.
Right. Yeah, no, and I see that's what they're going for, right? It just, I don't know if it connected. I just didn't believe it. But again, something kind of minor there. Sure. Like I said, this was kind of based on a script by Fincher's father. And apparently he wanted to make this earlier in his career. But he could not get anyone to get on board for financing a black and white film about the making of Citizen Kane. So here we are, Netflix. So thank you for taking a gamble on a movie such as this.
Yeah, I'm not mad that it exists. I'm happy I've seen it. You know?
It's fun to think about. It's a fun little gem of a movie that I think, like I said, I think it'll age better than we're giving it. I think we're sleeping on this thing. I really do.
Yeah.
I think one day there'll be an appreciation for this film that maybe doesn't exist now. I don't know. I'm just calling it. We'll see.
I think you could be right, I guess. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know.
I do think this is a film that it does demand to be as kitschy as it is from like a visual standpoint, with things like we talked about, the cigarette burns, the black and white. Like, there's no other way to do this film that's other than in the same style as Citizen Kane, basically.
Yeah.
Like, that fits really well.
Yeah. So okay, we've hinted a little bit at at least what I thought about Amanda Seyfried's performance. But what did you think of Gary Oldman and Charles Dance and some of the other cast in this? I tend to think that Gary Oldman was good most of the time, but I'm not seeing Gary Oldman's best performance here. What do you think?
Yeah, I see it. I see it as a Gary Oldman doing what Gary Oldman does. Like, I don't know that it's anything.
He's good at flying off the handle.
Yeah. It's not anything super noteworthy, in my opinion, compared to other things that he's done.
Sure.
I think he's good. I think he's really good, but I kind of always feel that way, right?
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen Gary Oldman have been like, that was bad.
Yeah. Or like, that was okay, you know?
Yeah.
But I just think, you know, maybe just from like a story standpoint and performance, like character wise, I didn't get as much out of this as I do other things. And that's why I feel like that maybe it isn't his best.
Yeah. So let's unpack that a little bit here. Because by the way, I agree with you. I think Gary Oldman is good. Not his best performance. That's kind of what I meant. I think Charles Dance from Game of Thrones fame is really good as Hearst in this.
Yes. Yeah. He's good.
Very intimidating presence. Very well cast. But, okay. So I think the main thing, more than dialogue or anything like that, because like I said, that stuff was pretty few and far between for me. I think the main thing keeping me from this film is I don't connect with Mank. He seems like he is a tough egg to crack, a tough egg for me to get on board with and connect with. I don't know what he's thinking a lot of times. He just sort of does things and seems like he's a lot to deal with for a lot of people, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder how much that is due to the nonlinear structure of this film. You know, much like Citizen Kane, we like have a modern timeline that we're kind of following, but we keep flashing back to different points in his life to kind of explain why he's where he is in like the current timeline. Right.
You know what?
That
go on.
There's you don't get to follow those events chronologically and build on them. So there is like a disconnect, I think, built from that. Cause sometimes we see him and then the next time we see him doing something in the past a certain way. And then like the next time we see him, it'll be 3 years later.
Right.
And he's behaving differently and there's no journey.
Yeah. It's, yeah. And maybe that, but I think more than anything, and maybe this would have been too Hollywoody and too fake. I don't know, but I would have liked the scene where Wells and Mankiewicz actually get together for the first time and agree to work on the script.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that way we have a setup for I don't know. I just feel like the deadline thing was always a little muddled. I never felt like the deadline was a big deal. It just was like the panic to write the script was never really that focused on, you know? I don't know. I didn't feel like he was even really struggling. He was just getting drunk and then it was done.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about on that particular point. I think most of which is maybe better left for spoilers. So
I forgot. We should probably just go ahead and do this. Yeah.
Should we move there?
Yeah,
let's
just do it. Let's just do it. If I had to rate it right now out of 5, I'm sitting at a 3.5, but I could go to a 4 pretty easy for me.
Yeah, I'm between a 3 and a 3.5 somewhere.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
lower than me. All right. So there you go. Let's move into spoilers now.
Okay, let's go.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Give me one cigarette you got up there. I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
All right, sir. Respond to what I said.
Sure. So yeah, you were saying that you would have liked more of certain things.
I would have liked more of the element of the Wells-Mankiewicz relationship before, like how it started and like the beginning of the, like, I'm going to go write the script process. You know what I mean? Because when the movie starts, he's already like working on it.
Yeah. Well, what's weird is, to me, the movie gets a little mixed up on which thing it wants to be like the big important thing in some ways. And that's a big complaint that I have, is that it sort of, to me, lost any sort of main thing to latch on to, at least in that current timeline, because I think what the film does want to do is explain where Citizen Kane, the script, came from Mankiewicz's standpoint. Like, well, why is he writing this? And here's all the events in his life showing us where X, Y, and Z from the Citizen Kane script comes from.
Right. Here's his relationship with, Amanda Seyfried's character, who's dishing out information,
Yeah.
And spilling the beans.
It does that, but in pursuing that a lot, we lose the sense of urgency from the deadline, but they mention it every time, but they don't necessarily, other than his drinking, make it feel like he's in danger of not making it, right? And
the movie even sort of frames it that like he needs to drink to do it.
Yeah. That was confusing to me too, because they spend time like he can't drink. We got to keep him sober and writing or whatever. But the solution was him to be drunk, which I understand why that's an issue. It just felt confusing. Yeah,
exactly. I understand it as well.
How am I supposed to feel about that? How am I supposed to feel about it is what I was confused on.
Yeah, why even bring him to a house where they make a point to not drink if you're just going to booze him up the whole time? I don't know. Just go somewhere where you can drink.
Yeah, anyway, it's weird. And I feel very much the same way about I don't know if you want to call it the finale of the movie, but maybe it's something I was waiting for on a personal level. But like when Orson Welles finally shows up and they talk about the script briefly.
Which, by the way, great Orson Welles.
Fantastic voice, like an impersonation for sure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that. But they blow through what I think is maybe one of the more interesting parts of the story, and that's the struggle to get his screen credit. Like I felt like that was kind of an underwhelming.
Yeah, that was like a thing that was kind of like argument. I didn't realize was an arc that we were fighting for until the last argument at the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And they resolve it by the end of that scene. So it was like what felt like an important thing. I mean, I know they mentioned it earlier that he agreed to not take credit, but like I wanted that to be planted more to pay off in a better way.
Yeah, I mean, they did have the scene with the brother, which I really quite liked. The brother who, let me look up his name real quick because he was in Ozark.
Oh, Joseph? The actor's name?
Yeah, Tom Pelfrey. Pelfrey, yeah. He was great. He was really good. Mm-hmm. And he's really great in Ozark Season 3.
Okay.
So just shout out to that guy. He's great. But they did have the scene whenever he was talking to his brother and he's like, I've been washed up for years. And he's like, it's the best thing you've ever written or whatever. And then he, drives off. Like more scenes like that would have gone a long way. But like, I feel like, the movie's unfocused. It's focusing on one or too many things at once, I think. Like, you have the relationship in the past with Amanda Seyfried's character, which was kind of rocky and I felt was sort of unsatisfying at the end.
Yes.
Like, she didn't necessarily... I don't know why she's not more mad, because if you've seen Citizen Kane, that movie's not kind to her.
Nope.
Which, granted, that could have been a Wells inspiration, right? Like, Wells did drafts of the script after Mankiewicz got done with it. So Citizen Kane could originally have not been quite as vicious towards her in particular. But I don't know, man. I just don't see how she wasn't more upset by it. That seemed like a movie relationship that seemed sort of unrealistic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how much did she know, right? Like
She read the script.
Did she read the script?
Yeah, she said she read when they're sitting on the logs, and she's like, I read your script.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. I thought she was just kind of like everyone else responding to the rumors, right? Because a lot of it was rumors that he was writing the script, and that's when everyone's trying to stop him. I don't know. Maybe I missed that part, or that line didn't stick in my head enough.
Oh, well, now you've got me second guessing myself. So
No. I think you're right. I guess maybe that was a confusing thing to me too, is that he was like working on this script and it seemed like everybody knew about it and everyone, I guess in this case, like someone had read it seemingly like simultaneously with him finishing it. People had already read it,
right, Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the guy took it. The guy he got to he took the script with him and he's like, are you going to show it to people? And he's like, I don't know. So I guess he did.
Yeah.
But
I guess so.
Yeah, by the way, Tom Burke is the guy who played Orson Welles.
Mm-hmm.
Good Orson Welles.
Who's good? Do you know him from something?
He is most known for Only God Forgives, The Souvenir. Oh, yeah, okay. I've seen him in The Souvenir.
There you go.
It's a good movie.
Okay. Well, it seems like so far we've been going through this and all of these actors that I thought like, oh, they got really like no-name actors to play all these parts except for, Gary Oldman and Amanda Seyfried, and you keep naming off people and what they've been in that you know them from, and I'm like, I am apparently out of the loop.
Yeah, well, you're the only person in the world who didn't watch Game of Thrones when it was coming on TV.
Yeah, so that would explain Charles Dance, right?
Yep. He danced right out of your periphery for years.
That's very true. A question that I have for you, if we're done talking about, maybe some of the lack of focus of the film.
Yeah, no, just tighter, more focus. I don't know. Tell me what I need to care about.
Yeah, what's funny when a film feels both too long and like leaves you wanting more of certain things to make them feel more satisfying.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's how this feels to me.
Yeah, it's only a 2 hour and 12-minute movie. It feels like a 2.5 hour movie, but at the end of it, I could have used more.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And a question I have for you is, there are sections of this movie where they get into the election, the one with, with Upton Sinclair, which actually, separate question before I get to my real one. Was Upton Sinclair played by Bill Nye?
Oh, man. Let me check.
I haven't checked that on IMDb yet, but when I was watching him and hearing him talk, I was like, is this Bill Nye?
Looking.
It is Bill Nye, according to IMDb.
Oh my God, you're fast. You went straight for Bill Nye, didn't you? I'm scrolling down the cast.
I scrolled down the cast. It just took me a while to find it.
It is. That's Upton Sinclair. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. I heard that voice and I was like, I just that voice is ingrained in my head from childhood.
Yeah.
And
cool.
Anyways, that was interesting. Especially given the things that he was yelling about. But anyway, so when we get in that section and we get into, Mank kind of tossing out the, like, why don't you tell people you've got the most powerful, control over people. You can make them believe that King Kong is 40 feet tall. Like, just why don't you use that to your advantage? And we get into this whole manipulation of the election and like actors portraying, supposed real people talking about
like
why they
actors
like the
we saw out
politician.
of work earlier in the movie.
Yeah. Which is fun. That's one of those things that like, I'm sure this is real and it's based in fact of things that happened, or at least like theories of things that happened. But like, does that section of the movie feel too on the nose to you, or is it just so prominent, in discussion, like political discourse right now, that it feels on the nose, or feels like feels like they stuck it in there because of what's going on and they're trying to make a point with it?
Well,
Does that make sense?
that's interesting because like I said, David Fincher wanted to make this film back in the 90s based on the script by his late father. So I don't know what elements exactly were updated and made more relevant through 2020, but this had very much the same kind of effect that The Five Bloods or Trial of the Chicago 7 had for me, which is that, maybe it feels on the nose, but it also kind of holds your hand through the process in which this began and showing you that, things look bad now, but they always were. We're just more aware of it now, and that the lies have always been prominent, and that the people who run the studios aren't in it for the art. They're very much, want you to feel and think a certain way. And I don't know, I think maybe having it so late in the film and take up such a large chunk of the film is my main focus for pacing reasons. But the content of it I found actually to be quite fascinating. And I'm of the opinion that I don't think it's too on the nose. I think maybe it is, and maybe it will seem that way in a few years when we're all very familiar with this. But I think it's there for like educational reasons, right? Like this is how it happens,
Yeah.
Like Spotlight with Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
Like you remember when the guy comes up to him in the bar, it's like his old friend, and he's like, "Listen, buddy, call it off." And he's like, "Is this how it happens? One guy leans on another guy, and then so on." It's like that for studio. Like this is like them showing us, like, this is how well-made propaganda happens, right? Like people who need to work, people who aren't looking at the grand scheme of things, or maybe they are, but anyway, interesting aspect of it, and not a flattering side of Hollywood that you usually hear about, right?
Right. Yeah,
So
I'm
that's
not sure
another
how much
thing.
of this movie is flattering to Hollywood.
That's very true. That's very true. But another aspect of it that I find interesting would be to see, if assuming this is true, and maybe it's very easily looked up, but I didn't know about it. It's quite fascinating to trace back to like Louis B. Mayer and Hearst. Anyway, just maybe Citizen Kane. I don't know. It's just fascinating. I guess you can kind of see that, like, even in the making of Citizen Kane, the character of Charles Foster Kane seems so accurate to what is portrayed in Hearst, even though this movie is not necessarily kind to anyone, like Wells included, right? So I just think it's actually kind of fascinating that Hearst is even still kind of a villain in this film too,
Yeah. And I think one of those things about it being relevant or hitting those notes, and maybe that's been in there forever, as you said, but also one of the things we talked about when we reviewed Citizen Kane is there are elements of that when it gets into its like political section of Citizen Kane that feel really on the nose. Like literally we reviewed that film the same week as election week, like in the immediate aftermath following election day. Yeah. And there's a scene where Kane loses the election and they decide, instead of running the Kane wins headline that they've made up, they go to the Plan B headline, which is election fraud. Right. So it's just one of those things that like, maybe you don't think that all of these like issues that are in our face and are so important right now, it's hard to imagine them having been as important or as rampant other times because they feel so important now. They feel like they're maybe existing for the first time for a lot of people. So maybe that's part of it, right? Is like this stuff was going on. And while it might feel like they're putting this in there to make a point about today's, it's like, maybe it's just factual and it's like kind of shocking.
Right. And also because there are so many, elements of Citizen Kane, you can kind of see, because they have to tackle all the aspects, right? They have to tackle, because, we've already talked about how Amanda Seyfried's character kind of covers a lot of the personal and the wife character of the Citizen Kane script, but the political aspect of the script had to come from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I guess that's why we have this time dedicated to this plot in Mank.
Yeah.
But I would have liked maybe like a clearer through line. Or maybe a more personable character in Mank. Maybe a little bit more to get me on his side, because I feel like a lot of his scenes are just sort of him going places and then unloading on people.
Mm-hmm.
And then, or going somewhere and trying to charm someone, but it's not ever, it's like, why is he charming them? What is he trying to get out of this? Like when he first goes to talk to Amanda Seyfried's character, it's like, and he leaves his wife sitting there. It's like, it was like an understood, I'm going to go seduce her kind of thing. I don't know. It's interesting, but there's so much that I feel like could have been explored more to make me more invested in any one plot.
Yeah. I guess if I'm going for a through line, we see all these scenes, as you're saying, where he shows up and he's, witty and charming and cute, and, he feels he's been washed up for a long time. And I think that all does kind of come to a head in a way that I did enjoy with the scene in the end, where after the party where he, yells and tells off people and he throws up.
Right.
and Hearst pulls him off to the side and tells him the parable of the organ monkey, or the story of the tale of the organ monkey, whatever he called it.
Yeah.
And that part kind of does make me reevaluate all the scenes where we've seen him before, because he's, the story of like, the monkey thinks he's great. He's like, look at this. When I dance, this guy plays organ music, and he wouldn't be playing organ music if I wasn't dancing, but not realizing that, like, he's the monkey. He's the one being made to dance.
Right.
Like for others' profit. And he's like delusional and thinking he's like this great guy. So it kind of makes these like, maybe that's the through line. Right. And I don't know that it's strong enough to really make me love the movie, or maybe it's not as apparent on a first viewing until you have that scene to make you recontextualize.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying is I think a good conversation afterwards, like we're having now, can help the appreciation of this film, because like as we're talking about it, I'm exploring these thoughts, and some of these things are growing on me of why they're thematically in there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, maybe, but I don't know. It's going to be a film that I have to dive into again someday to really peg how I feel about it, because it's just it's such a rare bird.
Yeah, it's definitely unlike most other Fincher films, and on a technical note, like from the cinematography, one of the things I will say is that one of the things that made me a little, on David Fincher for a while there was that his films did feel so polished and so sterile to me from a cinematography standpoint. Sterile in the sense that like they tended to be so perfect and so meticulous that it lacked any sort of like raw feeling, or there was no like spontaneous feeling or anything like that to his cinematography sometimes. Sure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I feel that in early digital Fincher. I think he's gotten better at that, right? I think some of his early digital work, I'm thinking of the film you haven't seen, Panic Room. I'm thinking of Benjamin Button, feels a little bit that way.
Mm-hmm.
Zodiac at times.
Yeah, I feel a lot in Girl with Dragon Tattoo and Social Network.
I think Social Network looks pretty good, though. I think that look works really well for Social Network.
Yeah. It lends itself better to some films than others. Yeah, I'm not dogging it as a whole.
I think, Gone Girl, Zodiac, and Social Network, though, I think are three really great-looking films. I do feel it a little bit in places, though. I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so what I did enjoy, this felt like a little bit of a departure. Even though it is meticulous, this film did not feel quite as sterile. It has an interesting, unique look that feels different. Sure. You know what I mean? And so I appreciated that. Yeah,
I agree.
I have one other question, just going back to like the scene where he talks about his screen credit with Orson Welles and he fights for it. You know, we get that kind of, we cut away in the middle of that scene to actually find out what the tale of the organ monkey was, right? And then come back to that scene, and then that's when he decides, like, I want my screen credit. Mm-hmm. So do you think that him going for the screen credit is it more vindictive, or is it more, I am not going to be the organ monkey who's playing for no credit here and not getting any notification for what I'm doing,
right.
Or notoriety for what I'm doing. Like, is that his purely like, I'm not going to be your organ monkey. I demand credit on this. Or does it more that he wants, like, I want William Randolph Hearst to know that, like, this is me, and I want everyone to know that this is me going back at him.
Oh, I think everyone already did know, and everyone was talking about it. So I think that's why he had to put his name on there. He'd already burned his career down, right? So best to go out on the best thing you've ever written, right? Like, if you're going to ship this thing that's going to sink your career and your social standing within your community, then, by God, you better get some credit for it.
Sure.
Plus, those were his thoughts, his feelings, his emotions, his politics, his truths were in that script, right? Like, those were his memories and his interpretations of this man. This is his voice. I can understand, if you're going to piss off a bear and get mauled by it, then, at least get the video online, for people to see it.
Yeah. That's true. And I guess I just got caught up feeling like, is it kind of a middle finger? Is it him trying to become more than the organ monkey?
He knew just the process of making the script. His career was over. If he wasn't washed up before, he would have been afterwards, right? Yeah. That's the way I took it. So I think he's just like, yeah, hey, you know what? Fuck it.
Yeah.
I mean, he died 10 years later anyway from alcoholic related.
Yeah. I think it was illnesses. 11, but that 11 is close to 10.
So I mean, the man maybe had a sense that, like, I'm not doing anything after this.
No.
I've got a plan for how I'm going to spend the rest of my life.
What did you feel the significance or really relevance of the dictator girl who's like writing down his stuff? Who she had that whole scene with the two scenes with the letter where her husband or boyfriend or whoever it was had been lost at sea.
Yeah.
And then later she's like, oh, they found him. He washed up on the beach or whatever. I don't know what to take away from that.
Yeah, I don't really know what to take away from her character, if I'm being honest, other than to show you that Mankiewicz is a difficult guy and rough around the edges, but
gives him someone to talk to out loud.
Right. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. That's a character that I never quite connected with. I think her performance is great. Yeah. But I think thematically, I'd have to take another crack at this movie. To try to unpack that arc, because as it stands, it felt like they were trying to give her something to do.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it's just like, well, we don't want one of the lead female characters to
be so bland.
To be bland and just be a female character for Gary Oldman to dictate to. She needs to have her own. She needs to have her own thing.
Right.
or something.
And she's got to push back at him a little bit because a lot of this movie is just him talking at people.
I don't know. I just remember when that happened, especially towards the end of the film, like during basically like the third act, and that it felt so big and important. And I was like, I don't know how to feel about this or what I should be taking away anyways.
Agreed. Yeah, you're right about that. The whole Lily Collins character was a little weird to me.
Well, do you have anything else that you want to hit on before we wrap up this review?
I don't think so. Yeah, I'm still sitting at 3.5 to 4 stars. I think it's good. And, it's a movie that I don't want to watch again, but I want to one day want to watch it again.
Yeah, I feel that way about a lot of David Fincher.
Yeah?
Yeah. At least, other than the great stuff,
Yeah. Where do you rank Gone Girl in his oeuvre?
It's middle of the road for me. Like I liked it, like middle of the pack, not middle of the road in terms of like quality, middle of the pack in terms of all of his films. For me, I don't think it's as good as Zodiac or Social Network or for me Benjamin Button. But I did enjoy it. I thought it was pretty biting and dark and surprising in places.
Yeah,
in a way that I enjoyed more so than like Girl with a Dragon Tattoo.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think if I hadn't seen the Swedish version of Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I would have liked Girl with the Dragon Tattoo more.
Yeah, there's something about the mystery unraveling and the shock and wondering what's going on and trying to like go on the journey as a detective with Daniel Craig that is spoiled when you know everything that's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By my third time through that story, I was bored.
Yeah.
Anyways, okay, so yeah, that was our review of Mank. Thanks for listening.
With that, we are at the end of the episode, right? Nothing else to cover?
I believe that's right. So yeah, next week will be a Criterion episode over an uplifting film, whichever wins the poll now. I don't remember what they are.
Yeah, so the choices on the poll, we went with uplifting films. Mike's choice was His Girl Friday, and my choice was Some Like It Hot. Again, that poll will be up on our Twitter at casualcinecast, so go follow us there so you can vote in it. And lastly, but not leastly...
Wonder which one's going to win.
That's really close, actually, I think. I mean, Some Like It Hot is...
I don't think so. I think Some Like It Hot's going to blow it out of the water.
All right, well... We will see. But for now, thank you everyone for listening. Mike, thanks for talking about Mank with me. As always, thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
Bopscotch.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.